Okay, so welcome everyone to my presentation today. It's my turn to show you how to cope with one of the most tricky diagrams in the writing task one, which is the process. So now I would like to introduce my route. So firstly, I will go through how many types are there in the process diagram. Second of all is how to deal with this kind of diagram. And finally, the mistakes can be made. So moving on to the types. Before going to the main point, can you guess what this process about? So I would like to invite Nguyen.
I think the process is about the milk producing.
Yes, you got the point, is milk production. So what about this? This is the food that is quite familiar with people, especially Vietnamese students. It is an ideal breakfast. Can you guess what?
I don't know for sure, but I think it's some kind of like a kind of cake or something.
Maybe it's the baking process. Okay, so all of these diagrams, their baking process and the milk production are generally called the manufacturing process or man-made process. So it's pretty easy, right? And moving on to the next diagrams, as you can see, it is to the left is the life cycle of a butterfly, and to the right, maybe they're growing up of an animal. And so I have a question for you. Can you guys guess what type of those diagrams? I mean, it is opposite of man-made process. Anybody volunteer?
I guess that is natural process.
Oh, yes, wonderful. It is the natural process. And so to conclude, there are two main types. It is the man-made and natural. However, to be more specific, I'm going to show you many types that you may encounter in the process diagram. The first one could be the circular type. So this is the diagram of the life cycle of insects. So why does it turn out to be a circular? I mean, in Vietnamese people called it tuần hoàn. And so I find this rather tricky at first, but here is an answer. It is called the circular because it begins with the females lay 1 or 2 eggs every 3 days. So after that, it goes through so many steps. And finally, it repeats once again. So, I mean, the repetition is something related to cycle. As you can see, the beginning and the final steps still the same, and it repeat over and over. Okay, so here is the sample. Please, Nguyen can read it for me.
Okay. In the early stages of the, can I read all the whole or just like a paragraph?
It's up to you.
Okay, so in the early stages of the life cycle, female bees lay 1 to 2 eggs within 3 days. The eggs will hatch into young bees called 9 or noon, I don't know. After 9 to 10 days, in the third stage, the young bees gradually increase in size and moult a total of 3 times before becoming adults. This transformation period takes place 5 days, 7 days and 9 days after the eggs hatch, respectively. After about 30 to 31 days from the beginning of the life cycle, young adult bees are formed. These young bees need 4 days to fully mature. The bee's life cycle is then repeated when the female bee lays eggs.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now we're moving to another type of the cycle that I think we might go through these days due to the lockdown. Can you guys see they're familiar?
Yeah.
So moving on to another type, I would like to show you this type of process. Okay, so I have a question for you is this process the same as the previous process that I have mentioned? I mean, you can have a look at the first stage and the final stage and tell me. How about you? Can you see anything wrong is going on?
Yeah, I think they are not the same since the first and the final stage is different. So
Yes.
it's not a circle. Yeah.
Okay. As you can recognize, the beginning and the final stage here are quite different. I mean, it is no longer a circular type because it begins with I don't know how this pronounced, sugarcane harvest.
Yep.
Yes.
Sugarcane
And
trees.
yes, and the final is delivery to supermarkets and restaurants. So this is called the numbered process because, as you can see, there are many numbers that you can follow, and by following you cannot be miss anything, any step. So moving on to the no numbered type, I'm not really sure about the the name. I mean, I invented it. So if there's a mistake, you guys be sympathetic. So this is a diagram, the process of waste paper recycling. So as you can see, this is a diagram without numbers. However, as you can recognize the direction, and if you follow it, you can easily find the beginning and the final steps. So the beginning is the waste paper collection, and final is paper making machine. So here is it is the begin. The process of recycling used paper begins with a collection of waste paper from public banks and companies. And final is the pulp mixture is processed in a paper machine and the final product is recycled paper. So yeah, moving on to the next diagram. I think it is a very interesting process because it is quite familiar with us in a daily life. And can Nguyen show me what is the first step and the final?
Okay, give me a while, please. I think this is the clothing production, like the production
yes.
of the process of making clothes.
I mean, can you please highlight the first step and the final?
Okay, the first could be collecting plastic bottles, and the finals could be making clothes like this, like the green clothes, green t-shirts that you illustrate here.
Products. Okay, so fantastic. Then just realized that the first step is from plastic bottles and the products is clothing. So this is the process of making clothes. So now I'm going to show you the most important part. It is the how to deal with the process. And in order to achieve a high score of writing task 1, you have to follow those steps. And this is how writing task 1 of process look like. The structure includes the introduction, the body, which contains the overview, and the feature, the body, feature 1 or feature 2. So find a path. This is a specific structure in the IELTS task 1 of process. Introduce graph to the reader, overview, describe general features, and finally the feature 1 and feature 2. You have to describe specific features that contains in the diagram. Okay, so this is how a process diagram looks like. But before research or describe a diagram, you have to ask yourself a little question about the diagram. Is the process cyclic, or are there any loops or repeating stages, or are there something happening at the same time? So this is an IELTS Band 9 answer structure. Okay, so the attention is quite the same as another writing task 1, is that never write conclusion or personal opinion. So in terms of the introduction, you can utilize these phrases to, use these phrases for your writing task 1. Maybe you can learn by heart all of these phrases to facilitate your writing. And to be more specific, I will show you the key of writing task 1 is the paraphrase. Okay, so this is how I write the introduction. The diagram explains the way in which steel rods are produced for the furniture industry. So I paraphrase. Firstly, I remain the word diagram. However, second of all, I replaced paraphrase the words illustrate into explained. And finally, I exchanged the word manufactured into produced. So moving on to the next, I would like to ask you, how many steps can you count in this diagram? Can you?
I'm sorry, I didn't unmute. So
Okay.
I see that there is the number 11, so I guess that there are 11 steps.
Yes, wonderful. As you can see that there are 11 steps, and so this is how we write the overview. Describe general features of the diagram. You have to ask yourself the number of steps, how the process begins and ends, and if the diagram has loops or repeating stages, or the process is cyclic. Just comment on that too. So it begins with the raw material and it ends with the inspection. So yes, the overall I write in this way. overall, the process consists of 11 stages, beginning with the raw material and ending up with the product's inspection. So the overview, you have to write in 1 or 2 sentences. And how to write an overview, overall, I think it's quite simple because you can follow these phrases. Overall, the process consists of 8 stages, beginning with what or ending up with what. By the way, you can write these phrases like there are how many main stages, or the diagram involves how many steps, and yes. So after that, I would like to show you the feature. Describe each stage of the process in detail. Okay, so how to divide the information into graphs. As you can see, unless the graphs, charts, and table, diagrams have no rules for grouping information. You can describe the specific features of your diagrams in 1 or 2 or even 3 paragraphs. However, your division must come in a logical way. I mean, you cannot explain it randomly. It may cause you problems in or achieve the low score in the IELTS process. Okay, so this is how I divide. The first one is the body 1, and this is my body 2, and the last one is the body 3. Okay, so let's move on to the writing. Okay, so in terms of the body 1, I can see that it begins with the raw material by using the iron ore, yellow ore, or carbon. So to begin with, iron ore, yellow ore, and carbon are collected to serve as a raw material for steel rods manufacturing. So second of all, it goes through melting. So I write like this. After that, the raw material is melted in a melting slit where it is heated to a temperature. You may have a look at the temperature and you can add it by linking words in your in your writing task 1 in order to achieve a higher band score. And the final steps may be about the pouring machine. The smelting cabin. And I highlight the undergo words for you because this is, I think it is a good way to use this word because it can fully help you to describe an experiment in their smelting cabin. And finally, of this division, I write next, the incandescent matter is put in a pouring machine and poured into ingots. Okay, so how to describe the next steps? And also the same as those phrases that I have given you, the next steps can also describe in many ways. Like the second stage is that, or in the next subsequent step, followed by, or after that and after. So moving on to my body 2. I use the word in the next stage to describe the next step of the body 2. The ingots are connected to a cooling sphere where the temperature falls to 60 to 100. Also, metal goes through special nozzles and cools down, forming strands. You can notice the word goes through that I use this. Okay, so following this, the metal strands proceed to rollers that change the shape. So as you can see in the picture of the rollers, it changes the shape. The shape is, changing. So I can explain it into my writing. Okay, so the next the products are put into a heating machine where they undergo heat treatment. Okay, so I use the word are put into to describe a heating process. And also subsequently a measuring automaton completes a surface check of the products. And the green here is about the body 3. After that, the metal rods are sized by special cutters and get ID stamping. Finally, the products undergo inspection are ready for use. So as you can see, this word undergo that I utilize here is really useful for me to describe the stages. Okay, so as all these words I have highlighted to begin with, after that, next, in the next stage, following this, next, subsequently, after that, and finally, this is all the time connectors. To begin with, first of all, after that, then next, or subsequently. And to describe the last stage, you can use the words like the last or final process, or even the process finishes with. And okay, so moving on to the final, I will show you the errors that you can make while doing this type of diagram. Okay, this is a diagram that I have shown you before. And to the right is a writing of a student, which is a diagram of a student who writes the writing task 1. And can you guys see the mistakes that this student have made? There are some errors contains in this writing.
I think that the writer didn't paraphrase so the introduction is kind of wrong, I guess.
Okay. Nguyen, can you recognize something?
I think that the overall part is kind of short and it doesn't like cover all the maybe the striking features that can be illustrated in the part sets.
Okay. Thank you. And I have one suggestion is about the spelling. As you can see that some spelling errors have occurred in the answer, even in the simple words like describing, filtration, or segmented. And also, as Nguyen has said before, the use of cohesive devices like linkers or connectors is seriously limited. And it also repeats some words like then or as. Okay, so this is a model answer. It includes the length of the overall as Nguyen recognized before. Also, it includes of the connectors like the first stage, then next. I mean, it contains the wide range of connectors that is so useful in the writing task 1. Also, the words that I highlight, the green is maybe your own words. I mean, your range of words, your knowledge. So you can use your own words to describe these process. Okay, so that's the end of my speaking presentation. Thank you.
Hay quá.
Do you have a question?
Rồi ai có question gì kìa hỏi chị đi. Nhanh gọn lẹ đi. Còn không thì thôi hả? Thank you.
Có chỗ của nó. Dạ.
Hỏi đi.